The CEO of Renault and the CEO of Stellantis just said some really bizarre things on the exact same day. And frankly, you've got to be very concerned for these electric car companies. They're not even electric car companies yet, but they want to be. I mean, Renault is saying they're going to go 100% electric by 2030, but they said today that they don't see price parity happening before then. I don't know if these guys are paying attention to what's happening in the Chinese electric car market. But I guess the CEO of Stellantis is, because he now says that he's very afraid of the Chinese dominance in Europe, what is about to occur. And let's be frank here, it's not just Chinese dominance, it's Tesla's dominance as well. However, I think what we should look at is the Renault Megane electric vehicle, which is a pretty good car, and compare it to, say, a Chinese vehicle, which is already on sale in Europe. In fact, it's on sale right now in the UK. It's going to go on sale all over Europe. So let's compare one of these new Chinese EVs to Renault's new electric car and see which is better value, and, well, make up our own minds on if there's any facts here in this information. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Great to have you here. And what a wonderful day it is on planet Earth. There's so much going on this week. All these different electric cars released. GM released the GMC Sierra Denali electric pickup truck, which I absolutely love. If you're not a fan of General Motors, I understand that totally. But it is a good vehicle. 400 miles of range. It's got the extended 11-foot bed. I mean, this thing's just, yeah, it's great. But they sold out in 24 hours, so that's a bummer. However, MG haven't sold out of the MG4 EV, and I don't believe Renault have sold out of the Megane electric vehicle either. Now, there's only one country in the world right now that I'm aware of that is selling the Renault Megane E-Tech electric hatchback at the same time as they are selling the MG4. So, in the UK right now, you can buy an MG4 and you can buy a Renault Megane E-Tech. That's the only country in the world where we can see the prices and compare the price, compare the specs. They're actually very similar cars. In fact, remarkably similar. Top Gear did a review on them. They didn't do a review on YouTube or anything like that. It's just a written review. They reviewed both of these cars in incredible detail. We're talking like so much information here. I don't think the average person would be willing to read it all. There's pages and pages of information. I went through all of it, read it all. The thing I came away with is this. They're both very good electric vehicles. Renault's Megane, I think, is a significantly better choice versus, say, the Nissan Ariya, which is built on the same platform. It's also cheaper. It also has much better efficiency, but it's quite a lot more expensive than the MG4. In fact, Top Gear gave the MG4 a score of 9 out of 10, which is one of the highest scores they've ever given any vehicle, period. They gave the new Renault Megane E-Tech only about 2 weeks ago. They gave it a score of 8 out of 10. They said it's pretty good, not quite as good as the MG4. But the thing is, right, the MG4 is, well, it has one big trump card up its sleeve. That's not the fact that it's made in China. It's something else. Now, the Renault Megane E-Tech is Renault's new family hatch. Its full name is Megane E-Tech Electric. It won't come with a petrol gasoline-powered variant, which is a good thing. And that's why it's actually a fairly efficient vehicle. It's an EV built from the ground up, in the same way that the MG4 is an electric vehicle built from the ground up. So far, they're both very similar in that respect. Now, what about size? Well, here's one interesting point. Renault said the new Megane E-Tech won't have the compromise that EVs sometimes have. You know, EVs, because they have the battery pack in the floor, often it means the seating position is higher. And they say that the Megane E-Tech doesn't have that floor, meaning if you, for example, sit in the back, you won't have that issue where you have your knees sticking right up like this, right? But it's not actually true in the real world. The reviewer said, yeah, it's exactly the same as everyone else. There is that higher floor. So it's not an advantage there. Well, what about in the overall dimensions? The Megane E-Tech is 4,200 millimeters long, 4.2 meters. It's 1,768 millimeters wide, and it is 1,505 millimeters tall. It's got a wheelbase of 2,685 millimeters, meaning it's got a long wheelbase considering the size of the car. That's what you want. That's going to give you more interior space. The MG4 is actually slightly bigger than the Megane E-Tech. It's 4,287 millimeters long, so it's 87 millimeters longer a bit wider, 1,836 millimeters wide. So about just over 50 millimeters wider, and it's almost exactly the same height, 1,505 millimeters. So it's 1 millimeter difference in height. However, the wheelbase is slightly longer for the MG4 at 2,705 millimeters. Both of these cars have really good interior space. In fact, both of them are smaller than a Toyota Corolla, but they both have around about 20% more interior space than a Toyota Corolla. That's a big advantage to almost any electric car. If it's an electric car that's been built from the ground up, like Tesla vehicles have, like a lot of BYD vehicles have, for example, the BYD EA1 is way smaller than a Toyota Corolla, but it has more room inside. That's a big advantage of EVs, right? More interior space. Both of these cars have that. They're very similar sizes. MG4 is just slightly bigger. And what about where they're built? Well, the Renault is actually built in France, and the MG4 is built in China. I'm sure you knew that if you already have seen my videos on the MG4. If you haven't seen my video on the MG4, you should check out that video I made recently, where I talked about what Matt Watson had to say about it. He claims that it's the best car he's driven all year. And this dude, I mean, he's driving multi-million-dollar cars weekly. So that's crazy. So what about battery pack sizes and range? Well, the base model MG4 comes with a 51 kilowatt hour battery and 217 miles of range. Plus it has 168 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. And that vehicle costs £26,000 in the UK. If you pay an extra £2,500, you get a 61.7 kilowatt hour battery, which is a no-brainer in my opinion, and you get 280 miles of range. Plus you get a more powerful motor with 201 horsepower, the same torque figure of 184 pound-feet of torque. Plenty of power of torque in both models. And in fact, on some YouTube channels, I've seen the MG4 do 0 to 62 miles an hour easily in 7 seconds flat. So it's not a particularly fast car. It's not slow at all. It's got more than enough power for everyone's needs. Now, it's also rear-wheel drive, which a lot of people are a fan of. The Megane E-Tech is front-wheel drive, and it's got a motor with 220 horsepower, meaning you get an extra 19 horsepower in the Megane E-Tech. And the standard battery pack is a 60 kilowatt hour battery. So slightly, just a tiny bit smaller, 1.7 kilowatt hours, smaller than the MG4's battery. Very, very similar battery packs here. Similar chemistry. The vehicles sold by both of these brands in the UK right now don't use LFP batteries. They both use a lithium ternary battery. In the future though, MG have said they plan on using lithium iron phosphate batteries in the MG4, but we'll have to wait and see when that happens. What about range? Range is 280 miles for the Megane E-Tech. So if we're comparing like for like here, we're comparing the trophy model for £28,500. That has the range of 270 miles, right? That's the MG4. Megane E-Tech has the range of 280 miles, but it costs more. Now the base model Megane E-Tech comes with that bigger battery pack, but it does cost, well, £36,000, meaning it's about £8,000, which is normally around $12,000 more expensive than the MG4. However, you can get a more expensive model that costs £38,500. But let's just compare the £36,000 model to the equivalent MG4 for £28,000. Very, very similar cars, similar specs, same battery pack size, very similar motor powers, very similar cars across the board. Charging speed, let's start with that. All cars, MG4s, get 7 kilowatt AC charging, which is okay. And they get 117 kilowatt DC fast charging. However, the longer range version actually has 135 kilowatt DC fast charging. That means about half an hour, you can recharge from 10 to 80%. The Renault Megane has pretty significantly better charging speed for home charging. You can charge at 22 kilowatt at home if you've got a 3-phase charger. If not, you can charge at 11 kilowatt. So either way, it's better in either of those options. Fast charging though, it's about the same. It'll charge at 130 kilowatt on an ultra rapid charger. That gives you a real world 120 miles or 155 WLTP in 25 minutes. So fast charging, basically identical. Charging at home, the Renault Megane E-Tech is significantly better. And what about the actual regen braking? Regen braking is something people don't often talk about. But personally, I think you want regen braking. Why use your own brake pads if you don't need to? Why waste that heat? You're just sending heat into the atmosphere. You won't be using it. Basically, when you brake at a traffic light, it's costing you money. I think it's costing an average of about 50 cents when someone brakes at a traffic light in a gasoline-powered car, because then you have to accelerate away again. If you brake in an electric car at a traffic light, it costs you virtually nothing because you're sending energy back into the battery, which to me is brilliant. That's one of the things I absolutely love about EVs. But if we compare the Renault Megane E-Tech with the MG4's regen braking, the Megane E-Tech is definitely better. You can use, both cars have a range of different regen options. So you can put regen on light, it only slows the car down a little bit, or you can put it on heavy in the MG4. But even in the MG4's heaviest setting, you can't use it to completely come to a stop at traffic lights, etc. Renault Megane E-Tech, you can. So that is one advantage I see with the Megane E-Tech. It's similar to say a Tesla vehicle where if you put it on full regen, you can use the car for just one pedal acceleration and braking. You don't even need to touch the brake. Now, looking into more of the details, the specs and features, both cars actually have very similar infotainment systems, similar size screens, similar safety specs, features, etc. Similar, I believe, safety scores once they're both tested, based on everything that I can see. They're very similar cars. So everything here comes down to, well, a couple of things, really. The home charging speed, Renault has the MG4 beaten. But in terms of driving dynamics, all the reviews that I'm seeing right now from basically everyone say the MG4 has class-leading dynamics. And more importantly, class-leading price. I mean, realistically, MG have played an absolute blinder. Where legacy manufacturers are busy making electric cars expensive and whining about it, like Renault CEO saying that they can't make affordable EVs, and Stellantis CEO, we can't do it either, it's too hard. MG, they're just getting on with business. They've made what the industry is saying is a leading electric vehicle at an incredible price. I mean, for example, we believe that vehicle is going to come to Australia priced less than 40,000 Australian dollars, meaning it's going to cost you guys in the US probably less than 30,000 US dollars to buy the MG4 when it comes out. Now, with the Volkswagen ID3 starting at £36,000, both the ID3 and the Megane E-Tech cost, £8,000 more than the MG4. And they're not actually better, according to the reviews. So, in my view, the smart money is to buy the MG4. It just makes total sense. And here is what Top Gear had to say. When you dig into what the MG4 does for the money, it's probably the only car in the class we can actually recommend. That says it all, doesn't it? You know what? Stellantis' CEO is right. Renault, Stellantis, and every other big auto manufacturer that's currently selling cars in Europe should be concerned. They should be very, very concerned. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Bye-bye.